Hi folks, with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast. In this essay, I'd like to talk about it's a special unit that the government, federal government, or they're also at state level, but the government has set up to deal with women's issues. Now, the mission of it is to point out the oppression of women. This department, taxpayer-funded department, is to point out the many ways in which women in a rich first world country are oppressed. Now, women have never been less oppressed ever in human history, but this department is there to tell us how horribly and brutally and wickedly and evilly oppressed women are. And they produce propaganda or outright lies to justify this. The politicians from the major political parties then ooh and coo over them, saying this is terrible what happened to women. And the big hairy-chested man politician, he's going, I'm going to do something for women. I'm going to protect women from those other evil men. And then the women go, oh, I'll vote for him. He's so big and strong and so hairy-chested. So this is the thing. Now, they have these hearings, I don't know how often, once a year, I suppose. It may be more often. And so there are 6 women. And it's not hard to, their names are out. It's not hard to, they're all gender studies, activist type people. 3 are lesbians, 2 are brown, and 4 are white. So you wouldn't call them high IQ, and they sit there. Now, while the politicians from the major parties are sort of asking them, just pointless questions like, so how many women were beaten to death today? Do you have the numbers? Was it 1 million? Was it 100 million? Was it 1 trillion? Were they beaten to death by Hitler? And those sort of questions, which are very, very sympathetic and almost like they're prearranged. And the women seem to have these answers, readily. Oh, yeah, 1 million women were beaten to death today, and 10 million were raped. Now, this, of course, is all nonsense. It's all manufactured, and it's all, to what extent there was any studies done. It's at very best heavily ideological and anecdotal, but nonetheless, that's it. Now, sometimes, not all the time, the political panel that questions these women is from one of the minor parties. Now, these minor parties are smaller political parties. They're not part of the globalist cabal, so they can actually ask real questions. Remember, creating race and social division is front and center of the globalist project. Front and center of the globalist project. And if there isn't any, like there's a shortage of racism, they'll just invent it. There's a shortage of misogyny and patriarchy, they'll just invent it. And that's what's happening here. But it came to the issue of of the gender pay gap. And the gender pay gap, women are paid much less. Women are oppressed, raped in the workplace. Women sexual this, the oppression, so only huge government interventions required. There should be, any man that speaks to any straight white man, any straight white man that says to a woman, good morning, he has to be taken and put in fucking prison, the evil Nazi motherfucker. So, big controls are needed on men. What controls are needed on women? Well, none. It's men that have to be controlled. That's what it is. Same as when it comes to mass migration, it's white people that have to be controlled. And with gender relations, men and only men have to be controlled, which gives the game away as being nonsense. But coming back to this gender pay gap, now, as we all know, any sane person knows, there is no gender pay gap. And so this, the questioning, the major parties have finished, so the final questions were coming from this minority party politician. Now, the attitude of the 6 women on the panel changed immediately. They became, they suffered memory loss. They were hostile. They pretended not to understand the question. What do you mean by that? And were as difficult as possible. Whereas, with the politicians who were sympathetic, and I think there was prearranged questions and prearranged answers, and how many women have been beaten to death today? Oh, we have, they've got the exact number, right? Oh, yes, sure. But they treated the minor party politician as being, your questions are not legitimate, you are not legitimate, you're not on board with our ideological feminist gender studies project, so nothing you do say or is legitimate. We only will answer your questions under great sufferance. And they made it fairly plain the contempt they had for this minor party politician. So the minor party politician was asking again about the gender pay gap, and he pointed out that it's the law that everyone gets paid the same for the same job. It's been the law for, I don't know, it must be 50 years. Now, even though and I remember this when I was a kid, that the law, was when I was young. I was I don't know, I think I just got my first after school job, weekend type job. I was still at school, and they brought this equal pay thing. But I remember it was in a warehouse, and I think this is, I'm going from memory here, but men had to lift heavier weights. This is again warehouse. Men had to lift heavier weights than women. So a woman only had to lift a weight of, say, 10 pounds, for example, 10 pounds. But the man had to lift a weight of 16 pounds. But they were to be paid the same. So I pointed this out as a kid. I said, well, that's, this is not the same pay for the same work. Men have to do heavier work. But they're just classifying the jobs the same. Women are being paid the same, even though they don't have to do as much heavy work. And there's an attitude, poor little things. Why should they? I mean, what happens if she's pregnant? Why does she have to? I'm a schoolboy. I don't care one way or another, really. I just noticed that difference. So this idea that men and women are paid the same for the same work, it's not true. Men and women are paid the same for the same job classification, but men have to do more work and heavier work, and that really needs to be understood. They waffle it away in the gender hustle grift type games that we see around us all the time, but that's the reality now, and remains so to this day, by the way. So this minor party politician presses the matter and says, look, the law is everyone gets paid the same. Are you aware of any transgression? Well, and they waffle and they look around and sort of mumble and fumble and they don't. And or we may have heard of some, well, can you give me the example? Oh, no. And we're not really sure. All right, then. Well, so, and he moves methodically, this minor party politician. Okay, so it's the law, everyone gets paid the same. You can see that everyone is paid the same. You have no examples where people are not being paid the same. So where is this gender pay gap you talk about? Well, mumble, fumble, are clearly very unhappy with this line of question, don't like it. So the chairwoman, who's looks like, by the way, she should be, working as a checkout supervisor at some grocery store somewhere. She's got that look about her. She's overweight, unkempt, the glasses, but the radical feminist sort of prose, talking style, delivery, the look, the vibe, the whole thing. Now, she then moves on to say, well, we're not really, and it starts to give the game away. We're not really comparing like for like. We're not saying that. We're saying that we compare the average wage of women compared to the average wage of men in total across the entire workforce, and just note the difference. And again, the minor party politicians, well, what does that prove? Men work longer hours, they might work more overtime, they work at more dangerous jobs, and where there's higher pay. So why, what does that tell you? It just tells you men are more highly qualified and work at more dangerous jobs, work longer hours, work more overtime, that sort of thing. Oh, well, yeah, but we've never said we're comparing same jobs and same people. We never said that. We're just saying there's a difference in the averages across the board, and that's the gender pay gap. Well, hold on a minute. If a man works 40 hours a week, and a woman works, for example, works 30 hours a week, she'll make less than the man. But that, why? How can you present this as the oppression of women, or the women are being held back or held down, or the men are being unfairly advantaged? It means nothing of the sort. It just means the man's working more hours. Well, yeah, we never said that it wasn't that. We're only saying that there is a difference given in the averages. And well, no, hold on a minute, the minor party politician says. You're saying this is a result of misogyny and patriarchy and oppression and so on. And it's clearly not. I mean, you've conceded that yourselves. Well, if more women had higher paid jobs, then work longer hours, then it would be. So maybe they're being held. Well, no. No one's holding anyone back here. What's this? What evidence do you have of anyone being held back? Well, there are more airline pilots, the high-paying job. There are more airline pilots as men than there are women. So this, therefore, given the outcomes not equal, this therefore means women are being oppressed. Patriarchy, misogyny. No, it doesn't mean that. It means that fewer women apply for the job and more women flunk the tests. That's what it means. It doesn't mean misogyny. But if the tests were made more equal, then more women would be pilots. No. So they come back to this equity thing. If outcomes are not equal, exactly equal, it must be because something bad and evil and wicked and so on. And this is their ideological position. That bad and wicked and evil is misogyny and patriarchy, and nothing else. Nothing else can be the explanation. So again, this minor party politicians, well, men are working an average of 38.95 hours a week, whereas women work an average of 31.32. For example, I don't have those exact numbers in front of me. So wouldn't that account for different income? Yeah, well, but why does one work less hours? Well, it could be for any reason. Yeah. Well, we say it must be because of patriarchy, misogyny, and Hitler and fascism. If the outcome's not equal, it must be because some bad Hitlerite thing. It can't be any other reason. And so it went around and around. And what's the social damage of this, that these people are inventing problems that don't exist? They're claiming misogyny, patriarchy, and Nazis, and that when it's not, clearly not, evidently not. But they're paid and paid handsomely. And the head of this department gets paid more than $500,000 a year, by the way. And look, in the real world, she'd be lucky to get a job on a tenth of that, given what a low IQ, useless flunky she is. So it just came across to me as a bunch of women, ideological, sort of low IQ women, just girls, just children playing house. That's how it came across, except they're paid a lot of money to play house. And they're doing a lot of social damage. There are plenty of women out there that believe that, well, the reason I haven't got a waterfront mansion, it isn't because, I flunked out of school at 15 or did a lesbian dance degree in college. It's not because of that. It's because of those fucking misogynist Nazi patriarchy Hitlers. And so this creates a level of discord, which in turn creates a reduction in social trust. So that's the effect that these people are having on their lives, saying that women are being beaten and abused, that women are being raped, by the gazillion, and the gender pay gap and so on. That's all they do, produce this propaganda. And the politicians are completely on board with it, They like this idea that there are these invented social problems that don't exist. And so they can say they're doing something about a problem that doesn't exist in the first place. But the minor parties go after it, which is why these women sort of hate this minor party politician, because he exposed the absolute scam and sham and fraud that this department and the things that they claim is. Now I've worked been out and worked in say dangerous or where there have been people employed in dangerous occupations, out on mines and this sort of thing. Now in the dangerous jobs out in mines, there is zero women doing these dangerous jobs. It's 100% men doing. So they've got they're on the men are on a hoist doing some work at a high level. They could be like many meters off the ground, and they're on a hoist and swinging around, and they're in a harness and so on. So it's I would classify that, well, it is. I mean, it's dangerous work. Or men, cleaning windows on tall buildings, and all these sorts of things. Men going in sewers to clean them out, and the list goes on and on. And there are no women in any of these occupations, these dirty, dangerous occupations. There are no women. Now they say, well, there are women working out in the mine site. Yeah, sure, they work in the office out at the mine site. They shuffle paper or something. That's it. But they're not doing the dirty, dangerous, risky jobs. Putting the explosives in place. Now, I'm sure I'm sure somewhere in the world you can find a woman that does do that. But certainly, I've never seen women employed in those high risk, dangerous occupations. Now, those jobs pay quite well. Someone that's out on the mines doing that dangerous work on hoists all day, they can be paid over $200,000 a year doing that. But there's no women doing it. But there are women in the lower paid jobs in the office and so on the mines, or just basic sort of secretarial type jobs. So the mines can say, "Oh no, we've got 50% women working on the mine." Yeah, you got 50% of women doing the bullshit jobs. The high risk jobs the women don't want to do. So this is something that needs to be addressed. It needs to be put in the public domain. Women don't want to do those jobs. Women don't want to do the high risk. How many women are going to apply for a job to climb around the sewers? I mean, every plumber I've ever had that's come along to unblock the sewerage pipe or the septic tanks, none of them have been women. So this is something that needs to be put out. But as long as they've got government-funded, taxpayer-funded propaganda units like this telling lies upon lies upon lies and determined to create gender conflict and social conflict, then all of us are being devalued by this madness. You've been a Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.